Go. And we are live. Hello, everyone. So Office Hours, October 8th. That's 10 days away from my birthday. That's exciting. Starting up here in just, we're just starting up here to talk about whatever you want. So Office Hours is basically your opportunity to ask me any questions that you have about anything. So I am happy to help in any like my content or really anything else. And I'm not afraid to tell you that I don't know and can't answer your question. So that might happen. But the way that this works is I answer questions that people ask me here in the Discord, or sorry, here in the Zoom. And then if we run out of those, which we often do, because people just like to be lurkers, and that's totally cool. But if we run out of those, then we will go to the Discord, and that's where the bulk of the questions typically get answered. And then if somehow we run out of those, then we'll go with my AMA on GitHub, which we pretty much never get to. So that's the way that works. Let me share my screen really quick and just show one other thing, and that is my Office Hours page. So if you want to learn more about what Office Hours is about and add things to your calendar and whatnot, then you can do that there. I feel like there was something else that I was going to mention about this, but yeah, it's slipped from my mind. So, oh man, every time that's so annoying that does that. I really feel like there was something else I missed. Oh yeah, I was going to share. That's okay. Okay, great. So let me come up, or let me actually just stop talking really quick and see if there's anybody who's on the Zoom call who has a question they'd like to ask.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Joseph, what's up?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to be on this for the first time. I posted a question earlier on testing library, and I thought I got it out, but it doesn't seem to be working.
All right. Can you show me where that was?
So
Was it
it's
here in the
on,
Discord or?
yeah, it's on let's see, the testing library general channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you scroll up a little bit, yeah, there it is. Oh,
Oh, did I miss it?
back. Yeah. It's not too far.
Oh,
Yeah,
there it
there
is.
it
There it is.
is.
Okay,
The uphill link.
good. Okay. I haven't had a chance to look at this one yet, so let me pull it up and we'll see. Do you want to describe the issue to me just generally?
Yeah, so I have a case where null gets rendered first, and then after a couple seconds, the other content gets rendered, and I just want to be able to wait till the content gets rendered because I could do a wait for, and wait for would only just wait till the way that I was going about this before was I was waiting for something to just show and null gets rendered. So I couldn't wait for what happens after null gets rendered. And
Okay.
now, yeah, this is what I changed it to after the suggestion in the room.
Okay. So presumably you're not using set timeout, like you're making a network request or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm guessing that's mocked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is kind of odd. I wonder why this is. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So for one thing, because it's mocked out, here in our example, we don't need to do 3 seconds because it'll resolve instantly. So let's just bring that down to 0. That way we don't have to wait so long as we're running through these tests. Of course, now I have to wait forever for Replit to do its thing. So from what I saw from the code at the time that I saw it, come on, what's going on? This is weird. Here we go. Okay, 0, save that and run it. This all looks fine. I don't see anything in particular that's a problem other than using test IDs. In general, you want to avoid those and use the by role query. So let me see which query. Here we go. And I'll give that in our office hours chat right here. So yeah, test ID is the last resort. You should try to avoid using that if you can and focus on things like get by role or maybe get by text. But other than that, everything here looks fine. So was it not working? Is that the problem that you came up against?
Yeah, so it's still unable to find the test ID that I referenced.
I see.
'Cause,
Okay, so let's just take a look at how this works. Like, have you been able to confirm that it works in the browser? Like, does it actually work, first of all?
you mean yeah, okay. What I mocked this from worked. Throw this in Code Sandbox real quick to see and confirm that it works, but I think it does work. That's the component by itself.
Okay, so everything looks fine. Okay, there we go. So we say, here's our name. We, just a tip, we don't need this assertion. You can keep it if you want to, but you don't need it because if it gets to this line, then that means it is in the document, because otherwise this would have rejected an error, thrown an error. So this line isn't necessary. Yeah, I wish that this actually could run so I could get a little bit more output. Oh, there we go. It's passing. Takes 62 seconds to do it. Thanks a lot. This, yeah, Replit. Yeah, it all looks fine. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. So do you want to share your screen? Like, is it possible that you could share your screen with me to show me the thing that's not working?
Yeah, I'll do that. Where is this? So give me a second. All right.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah. So this was me just trying to see that on
So if it's not working in Code Sandbox, oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, Code Sandbox doesn't always work quite right with the tests. It's kind of finicky. So I never really trust Code Sandbox.
yeah. I was only open to see that the component displays fine in Code Sandbox.
Oh, I see.
And not run the test.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. So when you tried it in Replit, it wasn't working?
Okay, yeah, this works. Yeah, this was the result that I got from running this exact same thing.
Yeah. Have you tried running it locally?
Not locally. I haven't tried locally yet.
Yeah, give it a shot locally. I have a feeling that that's just something with these tools that's not working in the browser or in their containers or whatever they're doing. And in addition, doing the set timeout with 3 seconds in a test is unnecessary. I realize that you're trying to simulate a real network request, but when you're doing your test, you're not actually making a network request, so there's no reason to do that. Just simulating a asynchronous anything is sufficient.
Okay.
So there's not a chance you can show me the actual code that you're trying to write upon which this is based, can you?
I actually deleted that because I went with a different approach for what I needed in the real situation, and I didn't need to write this test anymore.
I see.
Because
Yeah.
I had a challenge with it, I thought I should still try to see the best way to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you try it locally and it's still not working, then feel free to ping me again about it. But from what I can see, it looks like it should work, and then it worked for me here too. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Who else? Who's next? And while you're thinking about it, I'm gonna open up my window really quick.
Yeah, there's like notorious issues with Code Sandbox and Replit, mainly because like there's code running inside of a browser window, running inside of a container, running inside of something else.
Oh yeah.
Can you all hear that fan? Is that like really noisy? I can turn it off.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay, good. I don't know why, but my office gets super hot around this time of day. I mean, my laptop is working hard and stuff, but I didn't think it's working that hard. So anyway, cool. So who's next? Anybody have other questions here? If not, I've got tons.
I've got
Discord, but
I've got
So
something.
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead,
I was
Luis.
just gonna-
Sure. Hey guys, and everybody else on the call. So I was just wondering a little bit about one of the exercises that we had in the hooks module. Specifically, we had like the HTTP call, and we were handling the statuses and actually updating the state through an object. So I was wondering, like, what would you say are sort of like the best practices when it comes down to using objects for managing state versus just managing state individually for each item? Obviously,
Yeah.
like statuses make sense, but does it make sense for every single sort of type of HTTP request? I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that matter.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So I don't need to share my screen. Well, actually, sure I will, just in case people watching this later want to see what the devil we're talking about. So let me go to the React Hooks workshop, and I'll pull this up.
Hey Ken, be careful what you talk about. You might summon David.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Okay, actually, we want the live stream settings. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm in the middle of updating all the repos and stuff. It's wild, the stuff that I have to do to get all of these things up to date. It's funny. Yeah, so the exercise we're talking about is exercise, or we'll just look at the final version. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong one. This is the fundamentals. Here, we want the, sorry,
Hooks.
React hooks.
Yeah.
So here we
It
go.
should be 4, exercise 4, I think.
Okay. You said it, I think it's 6.
No, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about how I switch to use state with an object here, and we have a status. So there are a couple of things to talk about here. First of all, you mentioned the status and whether that's a good idea to do for like all your asynchronous stuff. I would suggest that like as you go through these workshops, in the next workshop about advanced React hooks, we actually switch this to use reducer, so you can see like compare and contrast the use state versus use reducer, and you'll find that use reducer is probably better suited for this type of state management. So I guess that was kind of the object thing. As far as the status goes, that I for like asynchronous stuff, you probably should have a status. But as you continue through the workshop, you eventually get to the build epic React apps, and in that I show you how to use React query, and that will manage all of your asynchronous stuff pretty much. There's one other use async hook that we write in the next workshop. And I use that for a couple of things, and that one does have a status. This is actually very similar to the way that ends up looking. Yeah, so like I pretty much always use an abstraction for anything asynchronous in all of my code. It's either going to be use async, that custom hook that we write together in the workshop, or it's going to be React query. And in one case, it's a combination of the two actually. But yeah, so that uses a status. It's a great idea. I have a blog post about this. I'm going to test out our bot here really quick. It is blog is loading. There we go. Kaboom. Stop using is loading booleans. So give that blog a look. Man, I love that bot. Thank you, Marco. Yeah, so I'd suggest giving that a read through.
Yo,
Oh.
your kid's back.
1 second. Hey there, dude. Hey, do you know what? I was thinking about getting this too. What do you think? Here. You like that? Okay, why don't you go show mom? Okay. See ya. Can you say goodbye? Wave to the camera. Goodbye. My family gave me that balloon for releasing Epic React. It was a big congratulations party, and he's been wanting it for a long time. And I've been meaning to give it to him, and yeah, he just came in because I had the door open. Yeah, so in general, the concept that I explained in this blog post is when you have finite states, it's just much easier to model that as a finite state machine. And using a status is like the gateway drug into finite state machines. And so you can read that blog post to get a little bit more of an idea of what I mean by that. And I show how you would model this sort of thing using XState, and it's pretty cool. And actually, I've got another blog post that's relevant here. Let's see if I can summon that. It is implement finite or state machine. Let's see. Dang it. Okay, I'll have to find it. Finite or state machine, implementing a simple state machine. There we go. So this one you might find to be quite interesting as well in that same regard. So you did ask me about like, okay, so when should I do this sort of thing? In general, if you have finite states, then having some sort of status to manage the status of a thing that can be in multiple different states. So here we have pending, idle, resolved, and rejected. Then like having that managed. The whole idea is you want to make impossible states impossible. I actually have a blog post about that. Here, let's try like impossible states. There we go. Boom. So yeah, those 3 blog posts all together should kind of help explain these thoughts better than I can, as I'm kind of jumbled. But yeah, the idea is we don't want to have a situation where you have like an is error Boolean and an is success Boolean, and they're both true. It's like, what is that? That is an impossible state. You don't ever want to have that. Or even an is loading and is success. Is it loading or is it success? Like you have to manage that. Putting it in a single status enum type of thing helps you avoid those kinds of problems. And then as far as like when should you use an object inside of use state, pretty much never. When each sorry, I should clarify or yeah, clarify that a little bit. You should never do that if each property in the object is a discrete state or a unique individual thing. We do that in this workshop to kind of tee you up for use reducer, and which is why it's just an extra credit. But yeah, I don't recommend using useState to manage an object of discrete states. Now, managing an object of like the user object or something, that's totally fine. Like useState, here's my user, whatever. There's no problem with that. It's just when each property is a discrete state by itself. That's when you want to just use reducer instead. And you'll learn more about that in the next one. Did I get all your questions answered, Luis?
Yeah, totally. I thought that was great. A couple of things for me to read, go over, and definitely appreciate some of the explanations with the, I like the idea of making impossible states just impossible. Like I thought that was a pretty good takeaway that I take away. So thanks, good. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Yeah, good. Cool. Joseph, I think you had another question you wanted to ask. And if you're not around, that's totally cool too. Anybody else?
Oh yeah,
oh yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Sorry about that. So I mean, we concluded that I should probably test it locally, but the one thing I was noticing with REPL was it sort of behaves the way it was when I was using wait for, where when the time is set to 0, it goes so fast and the test passes. But when I set it up to about 3 seconds, then it fails. So I might probably make time to see what it looks like locally but I wonder why that is right now.
Yeah, hey, actually, Joseph,
that's happening.
I know what you're talking about, and I just remembered why that would fail. And it's because the default timeout for wait for and any of the find by queries, the default timeout is 1 second. And so if you have that timeout be 3 seconds, then it'll time out. Now you can configure that, but again, you should never have a test that actually waits that full length of time. At least not an integration or unit test should never do that. Your end-to-end tests are different. Like they can wait those full animation times and network request times. But yeah, all of those types of things should be mocked out. And actually, in Epic React, in the Bookshelf app, there's this one test that is giving me a lot of trouble. I actually made some changes to testing library because of this test to make things easier. But we have one interaction. I'll just show you that really quick. Oh, whoops, I need to register. I think I cleared out my database there. There we go. So this interaction right here, when I type in some notes like, this is a great book. You notice it didn't actually try to save anything until I finished typing. So there's a 300 millisecond delay there. And so in my test, I don't want to wait the 300 milliseconds. And so in the test, we will actually use fake timers. And so once you get to this part in the set of the workshops, then you'll learn how to use fake timers to take care of things like those timeouts and make them happen faster, because you don't want your test to take 3 seconds. That would not be cool, right? So
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, that's really great to know about. Because the real situation this was for was, I think it was pulling the data from Redis and just trying to check if something was set on Redis. And it probably wouldn't take that long. With wait for at the time, it was failing, but I deleted the entire test. And yeah, I didn't want to have to start creating a file. It's always easier to write things online than create a file, but it's good to know about timeout and this timers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you will run into those situations where you have an animation or a set timeout or something, and so I'll show you how to deal with those. And then the other thing is, like, network requests, you're always going to just mock out, and those will take like a couple ticks of the event loop. So those would be way fast. So you'll never need to worry about that. The only time you need to worry about fake timers really is when there are two situations. You're either you're waiting, like you have a set timeout or something, so you're actually waiting for some time to transpire, or you want to mock out a specific date and say I need this to say Monday, and so I need to set the date to a Monday or something like that. Then you can use fake timers to help with that. But yeah, I don't really use fake timers a whole lot. It's every now and then. Cool. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure thing, Joseph. Okay.
Just a real quick one regarding the DevTools. I was wondering if there's a way to identify the different use states hooks within the DevTools. I'm coming from a Vue background where that's kind of like very simple, but just looking at them right now, I don't see a way to do that.
Yeah, so I don't know what it's like in Vue, but in React, it definitely could be better. So let's see if we can find a component here that's got so we've got some use effects here. Let's find there's one state right there. But let's find this is probably not the best app to use as an example of this. It's pretty simple, not a whole lot of state going on. I mean, I could go into this, but I'm pretty sure that this is only got one use state in it as well. It's just a simple example. Yep, just the one. Yeah, so basically they're not labeled. So you'll just have a bunch of state. That's super annoying. I hate it. And I think that I made an issue about this in the React repo. Let me just see. issues. Let me find the author. Nope, it's not in here. I should make an issue, but I'm pretty sure there's no reason why the compiler, one of the React Babel plugins or something, could just look at what you set the variable to and give a little hint to React DevTools what the label should be based on that. I think that would be a pretty reasonable thing to do, and I don't see why that's not a thing that already happens. So if anybody wants to work on that and build that, that would be great, because it would really help in the managing of state and debugging state. Oh, this would actually be a better example. But anyway, so I realize that's not a nice answer to your question, but as far as I know, there's no really nice way to manage this.
Okay, yeah, just confirmation that it doesn't exist. Thank you.
Sorry, I know it's stupid. I mean, we can label, like the hooks are labeled. So if you have a custom hook, each of these is a custom hook. Yeah. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, he got my balloon. Okay, see ya. Yeah, I've got another son who's like, hold on a second. Why did Michael get the balloon? Yeah, so like the custom hooks are labeled automatically, which is kind of nice. Yeah, that works out okay. But yeah, eventually you get down to states that are just like, I sure would like a label there. Anyway, cool. Anybody else in the Zoom chat or Zoom call right here who wants to ask something specific?
Yeah. Hello, Kent.
Hi.
Hi. I'm currently working on building a scalable React web app that's dealing with both B2C. Okay.
I just couldn't hear you very well.
Okay, never. Now hear me well?
Yep, I hear you perfect. The fan was really loud.
I'm currently working on building a scalable React web app. It's a revamping project, okay, that's dealing with both B2C and custom B2Bs. So I want to ask you for your advice regarding different aspects. The first one, would you go for Next.js at the framework?
Yeah, Next.js is a great framework. I've used Gatsby before. I don't think I'll ever use it again. There's some major limitations with Gatsby. I'll show you the biggest problem that I have. Well, okay, let me clarify. For the type of app you're describing, Gatsby is not a good solution. So if we look at testingjavascript.com as an example, did you see that little flicker? How it does that?
Yeah.
This is because we built this with Gatsby, and we don't know whether you're logged in until we've made the request to go find out that you're logged in. So we show you the unauthenticated page, the regular homepage, and then we flip you over to the logged in page once we figured out that you're actually logged in. This is a terrible thing. I do not like it at all. So for the type of application you're building, don't even bother with Gatsby. It will not go well. Next.js is great. So I would recommend Next.js. The thing I'm really looking forward to is Remix Run. This is going to be next level stuff. Their beta is going to be released on the 28th of October, and I cannot wait. So yeah, but if you can't.
But would you go for something new and
yeah,
you want to do the revamp for now?
Beta. So like I'm just bringing it up as something that I'm excited about, but you probably would be better served just going with something that's established, unless you really like living on the bleeding edge. So yeah, Next.js would be a great choice.
Okay. So, and for GraphQL client, would you go for Apollo or URQL or Relay or others?
Yeah, it kind of depends on your needs. So I've only used GraphQL in production one time, and I used GraphQL request or request GraphQL. I can't remember. It was one of those two, name of the package. And it served me well. The reason that I used it was because GraphQL clients are very, very, very large and like bundle size. And I didn't like that. at all for my use case. And so I looked for something that was smaller. But if it's going to be a substantial part of your application that you just make a lot of requests and everything, then yeah, using something more established like Apollo or Urkel would probably be good. React Query also supports GraphQL. I haven't used it for that use case, but I know a lot of people do and really like it. And I love React Query. It is fantastic. So I can't tell you the answer because I don't use GraphQL in production. The one time that I did, I used something smaller because of my requirements. But yeah, if you wanted to like give it a try, one thing that I would try is using React Query with, let me just find it. It's request GraphQL.
I think React Query is not supporting the GraphQL subscriptions.
That is probably true. I don't know. And if that's something that you need and they don't support it, then probably better do something else that does support that. But yeah, this is the package that I used. And if like that would be one thing that I would investigate is see if React Query can support that. And if I can, if it does, or if it satisfies my needs, then I would use GraphQL request with React Query. That would be the first thing I would try. After that, I don't know about any of the other libraries. I've never used any of the others.
Can I point something out?
Do you think 120 kilobyte for the package is very large size?
Yeah, that's enormous. So here, if you look at Bundlephobia, then you can take a look at Apollo.
Yeah,
and this is
23, I think.
Yeah, it's just so big.
That's huge.
It's like ridiculously enormous. I didn't realize that they have Lodash in there. My goodness, and RxJS. What is this? Shell.js? Okay, maybe this isn't totally accurate. You might want to do your own because they're not shipping Shell.js to the browser. That's for sure. I doubt they're shipping Moment too. So there's probably something weird going on with this analysis. But one thing at the end of the day, like regardless of which one you use, most of them, with the exception of GraphQL request, are going to be dependent on GraphQL, and this is the monster right here. You can't get away from this unless you just make requests directly. So, and this is what enables like normalized queries and stuff. So if that's something that you need from a performance standpoint, then yeah, like if it's what you need, then it's what you need. But this thing's huge. Like compare this to like even just React DOM. So people complain about how big React DOM is. GraphQL by itself, without Apollo client library code and everything else, GraphQL by itself is bigger than React DOM. So, I mean, it's not insignificant. I don't know what your requirements are, but this is typically something that really concerns me is how large these libraries are. So I really would try to stay away from a library like this. But you mentioned that you need GraphQL subscriptions, and I don't know if there's any library out there that doesn't depend on GraphQL that supports GraphQL subscriptions. I really don't know. I have very limited experience with GraphQL, so.
I could probably answer that actually.
Go for it, yeah.
Well, kind of. I have limited GraphQL experience as well, but I have worked a little bit with subscriptions. I think React Query, so like subscriptions aren't like a specific thing that is implemented in any specific way. It just means something that updates live, right? So that could either be through WebSockets or that could either be through like polling, which React Query can do. So if you're fine with polling, then you can do subscriptions with GraphQL in a way.
And I would actually add to that. I know that Tanner Lindsley, the creator of React Query, he actually uses WebSockets to tell React Query when it needs to revalidate the cache. So maybe it's a little bit different with the way that typical subscriptions work, but he does have a WebSocket-based subscription model. He doesn't have a GraphQL backend, so he's not using GraphQL subscriptions for that. But it is absolutely possible to do that kind of real-time stuff with React Query. You might have to wire things up a little bit more yourself, is all.
Yeah, and even then, like React Query like has defaults which like help your data stay up to date. So even if you didn't have subscriptions, then like if the user like unfocuses or refocuses, or they like just go back to the page after a while, your data would probably still be up to date. But that probably doesn't work in the case of like a chat application. But yeah, I just figured I'd mention that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, like it's what you need to do. So like, if you need to ship and you need to have GraphQL subscriptions, then go ahead and bring in all the kilobytes of JavaScript that you need to make that happen.
Okay. And regarding the design system, would you go for an already built component library, or do you prefer to build your own? And if you would go for using a component library, which would you go for, Chakra or Theme UI or something else?
Yeah, so I've never used Chakra or Theme UI or even Material UI, but I really prefer, like any company that I've worked for, they needed components that looked like consistent and like on brand and everything, right? And I found a lot of component libraries have this mechanism for making things consistent or whatever, or sorry, for styling things in a special way. But I've never really found those to be to have APIs that were easy to use. They've always been really difficult. So what I typically go for are either headless components, which is basically they take care of logic. And now that we have hooks and we have got a lot of really great things that can just take care of the logic, and then I can wire up the components to make it look the way I want it to. A really good example of this is Downshift Js, which I created. I no longer maintain it, but I started this with RenderProp API, but it has hooks now that just do all the logic for you, and then you use those hooks for creating a select or a combo box or whatever. And then also another example of this is maybe React Table. This is another one by Tanner Lindsley. It's a headless, well, it's a hook, not really headless component. It's just a hook, and it's great. I really like, or I've heard great things. I've never actually used that in production, but I've heard great things about it. And Tanner is just amazing. He's really great. So you could take a look at that. And then there's also the other side of this, where the library can provide like really basic styled things just for accessibility purposes, and then you just add styles on top of it. So a good example of this is Reach UI. I love Reach UI, and in Epic React we actually use Reach UI in a couple of the exercises for building a modal and a tooltip and different things like that. And the way that this works is they just provide you some components that you use and just the bare minimum styling just to make it work. And then you can add different stuff to it, styling to it. And so this is the approach that I like, where most of the other component libraries just come with a ton of styling that you can override. Reach UI provides you just the basic bare minimum styling to make it work, and then you can style on top of it. So that's what I would recommend doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The last question, which package management would you go for, whether NPM or Yarn?
I like NPM. I know a lot of, like, Yarn was pretty cool, and then they just broke the ecosystem with Yarn 2, and I was not happy with that. So I don't use Yarn. I just use NPM.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know how to say your name. Is it Mina or Mena?
Mena.
Mena. Pleasure to meet you, Mena.
Me too.
Okay, I think I saw Mo raise his hand. So Mo, did you have a question?
Hey, Kent. Yes. Sorry, I joined a little bit late, but I had a question from yesterday. I think I wrote it down in the channel, but I can go over it one more time.
Sure.
So it's actually two questions. One, I was wondering, like, when is it a good time to build, like, to use composition to build React components, and when should we avoid that and build something, you know, completely separate, but maybe does something similar? That's the first question.
Yeah. So sorry, I was trying to find you. Oh, there it is. Very good. Yeah. So, yeah, I think in general, composition can be used to solve a couple of problems. One of them is reusability. Oh, my daughter's coming now. This is going to be 3 kids in one live stream coming when they know they're not supposed to. 1 second. Hey, I'm live streaming right now. Sorry. You have to go talk to mom. Okay. Okay. I love you. What? You're the 3rd one to come talk to me when I'm live streaming this time. I just thought that was funny. I love you. Bye-bye. It just gets hot in here, and then I have to open the windows, and they're like, "Oh, it's Dad." Okay, so yeah, so it's for reusability as well, and then also it helps with state management. So you don't have to do as much prop drilling. You don't have to feel like you need to reach for context so soon. But then also, I think it helps with maintainability. Just the you don't have to open up as many files. You just say, here, this is my header component, and it exposes different slots for the right nav and the middle and whatever. And so you don't even have to worry about opening that file and adding another component to it or whatever. It just says, oh, just add another thing in this prop for the, by the search bar or whatever. So I think that composition is underutilized in the React ecosystem in general. Now, when it doesn't make sense is like for smaller sets of components, like a smaller UI. I don't know. I mean, so like even compound components is kind of a form of composition, right? Where you could do the same thing using like individual props. Where you could say, okay, here's accordion and here's my accordion items or something like that. So what I typically try when I'm working on stuff is I'll try a couple of different things. Like the building things out is actually the easy part. The hard part is maintaining it in the long term. And so I'm fine trying it one way and then just like saving that away somewhere and then trying it another way and just looking at them both and saying which one I like better. And so it's hard for me to say without a specific example of whether it's a good case for a particular pattern or composition. But those are a couple of words to hopefully answer something about that. Does that sort of answer your question, Mo?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I think I'm trying to build like reusable components, but sometimes like I reuse the same basic component, and if I make a change to it, it might break other components that have been built on top of it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think that answers it. Thanks. For the second question, it's a little bit more about maybe
this
design.
admin use thing.
Yeah.
I remember reading this. Yeah. So you're talking about there are certain pages that a user shouldn't be able to see if they don't have a certain role, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And like how efficiently, like, can I design that and reuse the same logic?
Yeah, so I've got a blog post about authentication that is actually relevant here. And basically what I suggest is don't render the things that people shouldn't be able to see. So like I see a lot of people will just add a bunch of ternaries and stuff throughout the code to say, hey, let me see. I didn't really show examples in this. But like within the component, you'll say, if they have this permission, then render this or redirect them or whatever. And I just recommend, like, if there's a section of the app that they shouldn't see, like these routes or something, don't make a protected route. I don't understand why you need a protected route. Just don't render it. And so in the component that renders that route, you just say, if the user doesn't have access to this route, then don't render the route, render null instead. And they'll end up on a 404 page, which is probably what you want. Now, I mean, if you want a special 404 or something, or you do want to redirect them, then maybe things can be a little different. But that's just one thought that I've noticed, where you could just not render it and render a 404, and it's just easier. That way you don't have to worry about adding a bunch of logic in all these components. So sometimes you have like different components that are shared, like maybe you have a drop down that can be rendered between for people with a role on this page, or sorry, with the admin role on this page, but then it can also be rendered on the post page for anybody. So that's the type of thing that's like a reusable component. Probably shouldn't have any logic in it that's relevant to the roles. And so whoever's passing props in would maybe pass whatever props are necessary based on the role of the user. So there are some components that really should have no knowledge of whether or not a user has a particular role. And then there are others where it like really just makes sense to have a couple if statements here and there, or ternaries, depending on what the role the user has. And all of this is just a matter of like, grab the user, maybe you'd have a special hook for use admin user, or like use is admin or something like that, to simplify some of the place, or to dry up some of the places where you're doing that a lot. That's the beauty of hooks, is like the level of composition that you can do with those things makes it really easy to share that kind of logic. Let's see, there was something else that I wanted to mention. Oh, another thing to not take for granted is it's okay to copy and paste two things. So this kind of goes into AHA programming, my blog post AHA programming, where you want to avoid hasty abstraction. So often we just put a bunch of if statements all over our components because like this is the same component, it just like we render different content, or we render something different based on whether the user has this role or not. And what I would suggest is build two versions of this. One that is just that's just rendered if the user has the admin role, and the other that's rendered if the user does not. And you might be copy pasting a lot of stuff, but build them first, have them exist. And when you're done, then you can look at them and see what's similar. And you might find that there are chunks that are similar, which you can externalize and make an abstraction out of. Or you might find that they're not similar enough where an abstraction makes it any simpler. So abstractions can make our code simpler, but they often, if we're not careful, they make our code more complex. And so that's why I say like, just make them both and then look at it and think, okay, which is simpler, having two of these that are almost the same, or having a couple of abstractions that they both use, or having them both just be one thing and it receives different props and we got a couple if statements in there. Yeah, so those are the kind of the three things. You can either have the user or not render the thing that the users can't see, or yeah, I guess how many things? Yeah, there's that. Don't render it if the user can't see it, or have two copies of the same thing that are like just different enough that they justify having two things, or have an abstraction that those two things share and just differentiate based on either props or something coming from context. So does that answer your question, Mo?
Yeah, that's actually awesome. Thank you very much. That answers a lot. That was great. The only thing is, when before the component, should I make another API call to check if this is an admin user, or should I check from the session that this user is already an admin?
Yeah, so you kind of cut it out there for a second, but I think what you're asking is, when the component is rendered, should you check whether the user is an admin?
Yeah, even before deciding whether should we render this component or not, should we make a backend call?
Oh, I see. I mean, that kind of depends. Like, how often do your users change from admin to regular user or whatever? I'm gonna guess probably not. And so, like, and I would expect that a typical user is not going to. I don't know. It really kind of depends. So when you use something like React Query that embraces the fact that the stuff that you have on the client side is just a cache and not like the real deal necessarily, then it kind of helps you solve some of these problems. So you just always, I would just reference the cache that you get from React Query, and then you can kind of turn a couple of knobs to determine when you invalidate that cache. And so if you're worried that the user is going to, somebody's going to change their role, and then the user should be able to see the, this new page, and you don't want them to do a hard refresh, well, then you can configure React Query to invalidate the cache when the user navigates away, or when they, by default, React Query will actually invalidate the cache when the window regains focus. So if they went to a different tab and then came back or something. The React Query will give you all the knobs that you need to control that level of caching. And then before you render a page or something like that, like you could actually invalidate React Query at that time. But I would recommend probably just going with what's in the cache and then having a nice invalidation strategy. It really kind of depends, but React Query will give you all the things that you need to be successful in determining what that cache strategy should be.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Ernesto, you've been waiting patiently. Can I help you?
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a question. Is it possible for like in Jest to change like configuration like for like specific tests? Like I'm trying to run a test where for like a time zone, and I want to test 2 different time zones that the date is rendered differently. But I know there's a way to change it like the globally, but is there like a way test it for like US time zone and then test it for like India time zone?
Yeah. So there are a couple of approaches to this. I'm not super familiar with time zone stuff specifically, but like typically the way that you would do this kind of thing, I don't know. Can you change the time zone on the fly? Like, is that a thing that's possible, even just in regular JavaScript outside of Jest?
I'm not quite sure. Like,
how do you set the time zone, like manually?
I just get it from the navigator, like from the browser.
Yeah. So what you probably want to do then is mock navigator so that you can set what the return value would be. So it'd be like window navigator time, or what is the value here? I don't know what the time zone from navigator.
I forget off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, but you would basically say, here, let me bump this up a little bit. It'd be something like just spy on window navigator, and then whatever it is. And then you mock implementation, and then return the time zone that you want from that. And then in your next test, you would just say, or actually what you could do, just do this in a before each or something, or maybe before all or something. And then within your test, because it's now a spy function, you can say window navigator dot whatever it is dot mock implementation, and then have it return what you want in one test. And then in the other test, you just do that same thing, have it return something else. And then you'd want to make sure that this gets reset after all of your tests. You should probably just configure Jest to do this, but it would be Jest restore all mocks or something like that. Restore all. I can't remember what it is, but after all of your tests, you should clear out all the mocks so you don't leak that implementation, that mock implementation. But that's probably how I would approach it. Yeah, you shouldn't have to do anything much more than just mocking the implementation, so you can fake that out.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't think about this. Thank you. I'm going through the Epic React course, just started, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Oh, good. Thank you, Ernesto. I appreciate that. Cool. All right. So no other hands raised in here. Does anybody have a question before I go over to Discord? We got 1 minute left. This is new. Okay, cool. So I'll just try to do some rapid fire answers. I can get long-winded, so I blame myself for not being able to get through many questions. Ishmael is wondering how I detect when a browser and tab is closed. There is a unload event or versus on before unload. I think it's actually on before unload. It's what you want. But it is a window event handler. And I will just paste this for you, and you can use that to make that detection. I think that interestingly, MSW also detects when the last browser tab is closed, but it does so in a service worker. So if you want to look at, I don't know where they do that or how that works, but I'll share the GitHub for them, and you can dive in and see how they detect when the tab is closed, or the thing with service workers is you have one shared service worker for all of the tabs. So this would allow you to determine when the last one is closed, which is what MSW does, so that it can, it's a self-destroying service worker. So when the last tab is closed, it destroys itself, which is awesome. Pretty cool stuff. So interesting question. Thank you, Ishmael. We are back up here. Okay. So, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, I was going to say that there's, I think there's
please.
somebody with a question in the chat.
Oh, in this chat. Yeah, sorry, I never look at that. Because, yeah, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Kent. I was wondering if you have any good general rules of thumb for practicing knowing when you have too many state declarations inside of components. I find myself building out components. I have many different states that I would like to keep track of, and I can either separate the component into subcomponents to kind of delegate that state elsewhere, or I can create one state that kind of is an object of all these different properties that can handle that. But that gets kind of hairy and annoying at times. So I was wondering if you had any good general rules of thumb on like which path you like to take.
Yeah, that's an insightful question, Kevin. So I actually have something, a blog post that is not about states, but actually about components, but lots of the principles apply. So let me see if I can pull it up. It is break up components or something. Yeah, there we go. So this is when to break a component up into multiple components, but the same thing would apply to state. And so the assertion that I make in here is that you can build your entire application in a single component, and you could do like all of your states in a single component. And so the question then is, okay, so why would we break anything up if we can just do it all in one? Isn't one simpler? Well, it doesn't end up being that way, of course. And so there are specific reasons that we do this. And I think I list them right here. So yeah, so one is for performance. For state management, that's probably not really it's literally not really going to make a difference. Like you need to manage the state. And so you're going to have that state managed somewhere. And so just moving it around, shuffling it around probably isn't going to make a huge difference, with exception to like if you do break it out into components. If you have everything in one component, then every state change renders the entire app, which is not good. So there is a performance aspect there, but you want to co-locate your state management as closely as possible to where it's used. And if you just have one component that just has a lot of state that it needs to manage, then it is what it is, right? Yeah, code sharing and reusability is another good reason to break things up. And so if you can identify in your component different logical domains, or what is the word I'm looking for? Concerns, then you could break each one of those pieces up into an individual hook. And then it goes from managing a bunch of states and just like a bunch of use state calls into a couple of hook calls that, take some arguments and return some values. And so that can help with code sharing and reusability if you need that, or just in general, kind of maybe help you grok what each part of the code is responsible for. So you get true separation concerns, which is one of the things I love about hooks. Yeah, and then you get some of that benefit from separating things out, potentially where because things are separated by concern, it's a little easier to manage. That's kind of what this point's where that point comes into play. Yeah, testing. I don't think that there's really necessarily a huge impact on testing in this regard. Yeah, that some of this stuff doesn't map perfectly, but in general, I don't have a rule of thumb. Like I don't say, oh, once I hit 3 use states in one component, then I'm gonna break it up into multiple components. Like that would be a very bad. I'm sure somebody's made an ESLint rule about that. That's a terrible idea. I would not do any sort of enforcement on that. It really comes down to are my concerns mixing a bunch, and is there a way that I can separate them more clearly? And then typically if there's multiple use states and those states are related, then you're probably, what you should do is make a use reducer instead. Because that's basically what use reducer is for, is for discrete elements of state that are related to each other. That's use reducer is a better solution for that. I feel like there was another thing. Oh yeah, and like once I added use query to my or React query to my applications, then my need for managing state drastically reduced. Was drastically reduced. So if you're not already using use query or something like it, then add that, and then you'll find that you don't have as much state you need to manage, and this becomes less of a problem. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. Does that help, Kevin? I don't know if you're muted, but I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that helps a lot. I'm going to take a look at the blog post, and yeah, React query is something that I'm familiar with, but I haven't incorporated it much yet. So I need to jump on that train.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, it's good. Cool. All right, so we're 6 minutes over, and it's the end of the day for me. I want to go hang out with my family. They sound like they're having a lot of fun, but I'll try to just get a couple last things here really quick. Responsiveness. Do you prefer working with the solution for styling? Yeah, so I'm not sure, Zamir, what you're talking about with responsiveness, like if you're talking about a performance thing or doing responsive design. But there is something that you can use for responsive design, if that's what you mean. So from a performance standpoint, I've never really run into a problem with emotion. It's really fast. But if you're talking about responsive design, then there's, I think it's face paint is what it is. Oh, emotion. There you go. So this is pretty cool. I like this pretty well as a solution for that. There are actually quite a few solutions for response. I know there's like, what is it? Theme, UI, emotion. Is that what it is? Or maybe this is just something else entirely. Yeah, I think it's probably something else. Oh, what is it? Rebas. Yeah, Rebas emotion. Yeah, I've never used this one, but a lot of people really like this as well. As a, it has some components that have some responsiveness to them too. So I'll just paste a couple links to those. And I have not used Rebas, but I have used FacePaint and I like it. It's great. Okay, cool. Where are we at? Hey, congratulations, Alexandre. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay. Learning testing node backends. Oh, congratulations. That's awesome. Why do you prefer bootstrapping a server and then querying it with Axios instead of solutions like Supertest? Thanks. I thought that I mentioned this in the videos and documentation. I feel like I did, but maybe I didn't. So the reason is that I find Supertest to be overly complex. It's like an over abstraction for what I'm trying to do. I think that Axios, well, so even with Supertest, I'm pretty sure you still have to actually bootstrap the server. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you have to do that. But if you don't, then that's actually not a good thing. I think that you really should get the server running and hit it with actual HTTP requests. Otherwise, if you're just like testing around it, you're testing the middleware directly or something, then you're going to miss out on a fair amount of confidence in your application's effectiveness in responding to HTTP requests. So I like that. When I think about my my testing of anything, I want to get my tests to resemble the way that the software is used as close as possible. And Axios is great. I've actually also been really liking GOT recently, but I think I'd probably still use Axios for testing. But in any case, Axios is doing what my end users are going to do. They're going to be making HTTP requests to my server, and that's the type of thing that I want tested. Or that's how I want it tested. That's how I want my tests to, or that's how my software is used. So that's how I want the software to be tested. So that's why. Here, let's take a look at this, Marcos. Oh, right. Yes, I remember this. Hold on a second. Yeah, so this this blog post and this using context effectively, one of the things that I do is splitting up the state and dispatch. And I got the idea from Dan Abramoff. He mentioned to me that that's what they do at Facebook, and there are a couple of benefits to it. One of the benefits is mentioned here. Consumers who only need the dispatch function can consume the dispatch function, but this actually also plays into one of the patterns that I teach in Epic React, which is what I call context module functions, which is basically functions that you can import that accept the dispatch function. And one of the nice things about that is that you will also, you can code split those utility functions. That's kind of orthogonal to, that's a TC39 word, but that's not entirely related to the question here. Yeah, pretty much the main benefit you get is from splitting the context is consumers of just dispatch won't need to re-render. That's the main benefit from that. Yeah, and you're correct, Marcos. All of this is accomplishable without splitting. And I should mention, I should probably change this blog post because you don't. This is a performance optimization. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. Yeah, here it is. Maybe do. Nope, that's wrong. Let's find it. Performance. Nope. I thought that I mentioned this. I should add in here that splitting things up is really just an optimization. And in fact, I often don't even memoize the value, my context value. It really only comes down to when I have a lot of consumers that only need the dispatch function. Then splitting the dispatch into a separate provider works really nicely to solve that problem. So sorry, a lot of words. Short answer is it's only useful if you have a lot of consumers that only consume the dispatch function. Okay, cool. Oh, where'd I go? Oh, I'm on a different channel here. Here we go. Okay. Do I continually upgrade my long-lived React projects? Yeah, so I use one tool for upgrading things, and I do not update long-lived or old projects. Oh wait, no, that's not it. npm check updates. So I only update projects when I need to make changes to them. And that when I was at work, like at PayPal, that was basically like every week I would go and update the project because I'm always making changes to those. But when I just like build a little thing or even open source library, and then I'm using it in other projects and stuff, but I'm not really needing to make changes to it, I don't bother updating stuff. I don't have like a depend-a-bot or anything like that, or any anything that will keep dependencies updated. Now, an exception to that might be something that actually has dependencies that I ship with or something where I want to stay on top of security updates and stuff, but like dev dependencies, I'm not updating that unless I need to do some dev. So I rarely do that. However, like the workshop app and stuff, I'm using this tool all the time to get everything up to the latest version so that everybody who's going through Epic React will have the latest version of all the dependencies. Yeah, this is the tool. I pretty much just have a nice suite of tests to make sure that things don't break. And then I run this. And then if the test passed, then I assume that it's working and I ship it. That may or may not be satisfactory for you based on your like what you're building. If you're building like a bank application, you don't have really good test coverage or you don't really trust it, then maybe you might want to do some manual checking and stuff too. But like I'm building some workshop material, and if something breaks, that's not great. I don't want it to. That's why I do have some tests, but it's not like the end of the world if somebody installs or like clones the repo and things aren't quite working right. You know, so I kind of base things on that. Anyway, hopefully that is sort of helpful. I'll paste a link to this really quick. Okay, I think we're getting down to the end of it, so I think I can finish. Using React testing library to test a component, I have a select dropdown that upon selection triggers a use effect and dispatches a Redux action. That action makes an API call using sagas. Whew, and fetches data. It will populate a second dropdown. Wow. How do I test this in React testing library? Yeah, okay. So I would render them both. You'd render both dropdowns. You'd mock out the HTTP request using MSW, and then you would do what the user does. So they select something in dropdown 1, and then you just await and then wait for dropdown 2 to have that list in it. It's actually that's how easy it is. I know it sounds easy, and maybe I'm downplaying it a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what your use case is, but that's basically what it is. So yeah, if you're not familiar with MSW, give this a solid look. It is awesome. Okay, cool. That's all I'm going to say on that. Here we go. Hi, that's nice. And short question. Go for it, Mario. You don't have any time left. Go, go, go. I guess maybe that was your question. Haha, just kidding. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Marcos. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Okay, Mario, I guess you didn't ask. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go. Thanks, everybody. This was a good time. My next office hours is on Monday, 9:30 Mountain Time, my time. And it's gonna be fun. We're gonna talk about whatever you want to talk about. And yeah, if you haven't gotten Epic React yet, go get it. It's great. And that's it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.